Okay, good afternoon to the audience in Australia and good morning to the audience in Indonesia. Welcome to the first session of the first day of this conference. And I am Abdul Hakim Masyhur, will be act as a moderator of this session. So there are two speakers who will give presentation about their ongoing research, which are Mr. Gunawan Tanuwidjaja, and then we'll be continue with Mrs. Cicilia Effie. So before we start the presentation of the first speaker, let me read the curriculum vitae of our speakers from this session. First of all, will be Mr. Gunawan Tanuwidjaja. Mr. Gunawan Tanuwidjaja is a PhD candidate in the School of Design, Faculty of Creative Industries, Queensland University of Technology, with the full support of the Australian Award Scholarship. He obtained his bachelor degree in architecture from ITB Bandung in Indonesia, and then he also got the Master of Science from National University of Singapore. He also certified architect of the Indonesian Architects, and he is also a lecturer at Petra Christian University at the architecture study program. He teaches some of the courses, including inclusive design course, methods involving people with disabilities, older people, and pregnant women. His research currently is focused on the inclusive educational facilities, including libraries, schools, and dormitories, and in collaboration with the international partners such as UBCHEA, or the United Board for Christian Higher Education in Asia, JICA, which is Japan International Cooperation Agency, and SIF, which is the Singapore International Foundation, and UN Habitat. And for the second presenter, which is Mrs. Cicilia Effie, Mrs. Cicilia Effie actually currently is a registered clinical psychologist from Indonesia and have experience. She has an experience as a practitioner in various clinics and hospitals in Surabaya. And she also has several years of teaching experience, both as a part-time lecturer and also guest lecturer. And for his academic or educational background, she obtained the Bachelor of Psychology in Mandela Catholic University in Surabaya, and she continued her Master of Clinical Psychology in Airlangga University, and currently she is a PhD student in the Queensland University of Technology, and under scholarship of QT Postgraduate Research Awards. And his thesis is on exploring parental mobile device use and the influence on parent-child interaction, which we'll see the presentation later on. And okay, so without any further ado, we start our session for the first presentation from Mr. Gunawan Tanuwidjaja. So for Mr. Gunawan Tanuwidjaja, time and place are yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lukman. I want to start my presentation with my slide. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. The title of my presentation today is actually Inclusive Education, the story of inclusive decision-making process with people with disabilities. In this opportunity, I want to acknowledge Australia Awards scholarships as my supporting scholarships, and QUT, and also my campus, Petra Christian University. I also acknowledge several others important people like my supervisors, Associate Professor Janice Rieger, Professor Jill Franz, and Associate Professor Connie Susolawati that also presented, also gave speech in the opening of this seminar. I want to present my structure or presentation structure with this structure. First is the motivation of my study, introduction, research question and research objective, literature review, research methodology, and some finding in introductory program or project in Petra, and conclusion. And for all participants, you can access my PowerPoint in my website, designinclusiveukpetra.wordpress.com. Okay, continuing to my motivation, actually, in 2019, I experienced blurry vision and difficulty to carry heavy stuffs because of uveitis. That's why I'm really also I have become one of the people with temporary disability, and because of this research, because of this condition, I want to emphasize that I want to continue to pursue my research. So I want first, the people with disabilities are really important according to United Nations Convention of Rights of People with Disability. So because of that, empowerment strategies are needed to remove the barriers faced by people with disabilities. And then in Indonesian, we have two acts. Act number 8 of year 2016 with for rights of people with disabilities, and Act number 20 year 2003 about education of people with disabilities. And because of this regulation, we have facilitated the people with disabilities in special schools for children and in inclusive education, inclusive schools. However, the implementation is not really effective, and many schools fail supporting the people with disabilities, according to JICA and Edwards 2014 and JICA et al. 2015. And therefore, and also Adi Utomo et al. Also support the argument for developing an inclusive education system and facilities. Therefore, one of the solutions is actually developing an inclusive library. So my research is actually about inclusive library as one educational facility. And because we learned that we need to include the people with disability to redesign or to create service for the library. Therefore, we need inclusive decision making or inclusive design framework. Yeah, generally, inclusive design is known as creative process to deliver products or services usable by many as people as possible. But in the real condition now in Indonesia, we need everything to be pursued fast or to deliver fast. Therefore, we need another inclusive design model for developing countries with fast-track development. And because of that, I come to the research question and research objectives. So the main research question is actually, what are the barriers and opportunities for inclusive decision making to be implemented in developing countries like Indonesia? And because this presentation is limited, so I just want to focus about one thing about the barriers of the implementation of inclusive design in library in Indonesia. So back to, this is a part of my literature review. I will talk about inclusive design and theoretical models of disability. Yeah, inclusive design in Commission for Architecture and Built Environment, England, actually has been also focused in architecture level. So we are not only talking about design products, but we also talk about architecture or educational building. So one of the example in the picture is actually library in UK. So with that, hopefully we can address the needs of people with disabilities. And several principles of inclusive design is actually focusing on the people at heart, including of people with disabilities, focusing with diversity and difference, and acknowledging there is a no single design solution that can accommodate all users. And also inclusive design provide flexibility in use and convenient and enjoyable use. So therefore, we also need to see some example of inclusive design in other states or other country like US. So one of the library that has implemented inclusive design is actually the Aurelia library. This is actually university library, but they have also conducted inclusive design process for. This is the process of inclusive design. So they talk about redesigning or changing the old library with the new service and so on. So we also learn about this. And however, the problem with inclusive design in the developed countries like US or UK is actually, even in Australia, we don't really have problem with time. So the process in Aurelia library actually took 18 months process. So to conduct data collection, data analysis, and also 2-day intensive design charrette. Charrette is like a workshop, design workshop, involving all campuses stakeholders. So as you can see, these are the examples of inclusive discussion using maps, using model. So every data or every input is written down in the paper, and then later on, the architects and the team, the librarian team, actually include in the new redesign plan. And then coming back into theoretical models of disability, why I want to highlight this, because actually in my field, in architecture field, sometimes we saw that we design things for people with disabilities. I mean, decision makers or architects actually control the life of people with disabilities. So actually this is almost close to medical model of disability that has been stated by Burchard and Llewellyn and Hogan. So yeah, it's quite sad that actually the people with disability are actually the focus, or can be said as the object of our design, and therefore they have to be cured or they have to be changed. This is actually not really a good model, or this is a false model. So we have another alternative models. This is by Oliver 1996 and Barnes 1996. So the social model, actually a new concept in the 1990s, actually proposed the position of people with disabilities as a center of as the subject of changes. So they have to be facilitated, and they have the power now to change the barriers, or to create inclusive education. Lastly, we have social cultural model of disability. This is still new because it's Anderson and Whitfield is doing this research in 2011. But as we can see, that actually the individual with disabilities, or in this case, a stroke survivor, actually is also affected by community and institutional policy, and also the healthcare and disability in the national policy. So we have to understand more about the social cultural model. And in Indonesian case, I believe we are more community oriented. So this can be a new breakthrough for my research, because the social cultural model can be integrated, or has to be integrated in my in the design framework for architecture, and also decision making for inclusive education. Okay, roughly for the research methodology, I applied grounded theory and case study research. Basically, grounded theory is using qualitative procedure to conduct the interview and to collect the themes, or the important points from the respondents. Meanwhile, the case study research is actually trying to focus an example. For example, this I'm currently doing 2 library, one in Surabaya, or I have finished one in Surabaya. This is the Surabaya Municipality Library, and then I'm still conducting another one. This is a state library, but I'm changing my. There has been a change, so I'm still finding another case study in Brisbane. So I will, with these two methods, I will try to create a new social cultural model for inclusive design and inclusive decision making, especially in the design. So maybe this is just general steps that I have done partially. The main thing is actually is the involvement of people with disability, and also the preparatory project in Petra Christian University that I will present in this conference. The result of preparatory project. Okay, so this is actually not a part of my PhD research, because this is done in 2017. So it is supported by United Boards, and this is done also together with my friends, Miss Dian Wulandari, Miss Luciana Cristanto, and the other two colleagues. So we start with using, we start with mapping the Petra Christian University Library condition. So our library is actually in level 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th in Radius Prawiro Building in Siwalan-Kerto, Surabaya. So for you who doesn't know Indonesian, it's quite close to Bali. Surabaya is only 1 hour from Bali, and Siwalan-Kerto is like a southern part, almost like Logan, or sorry, not Logan, maybe like South Bank, or yeah. So it's not in the center area, but it's quite vibrant, because we have around 8,000 students in there in our university. So we have also other users, like of course students with disabilities. We have older people, or older lecturer, pregnant lecturer and staffs, and also some children, especially when people bring our staffs bring the children to during, especially this is during holiday, not during school time. So we have some other users in our library. So after the identification, the accessibility documentation, and disability, we find also we did also disability simulation. I will show this. Come back to the picture. This is how we know about the problem. We conduct discussion, and then also we conduct simulation as people with disability. I believe this is quite new in inclusive design or inclusive decision making, because in the past, decision maker doesn't really understand the problem, because they don't do role play, or they don't understand the detail of the problem, and therefore we hope that with this methods we can do more inclusive design inclusive design process. Okay. Okay, some part. Sorry, this is the theoretical back to literature review actually, but I just want to highlight several points that has been found in Petra Christian project. We have problem with social trust between stakeholders and people with disabilities. Not many people with disabilities actually want to communicate to university leaders or head of librarian, because they don't really feel the trust. We have weak policy and legal enforcement. Of course, this is not in all Indonesian province, but generally we have weak legal enforcement, and limited awareness and acknowledgement inclusive design among stakeholders, and limited participation of people with disabilities as ID participants. One interesting assumption is actually in developed countries, we think that legal enforcement are really good, but I just cited from Ward, my supervisor, Ward and France. France is my supervisor, Prof. Jill France. Actually, in Australia, we have also problem with accessibility legal enforcement, especially in housing. So it's quite sad, but also it's quite interesting too. And another problem is actually limited time for implementation. Yeah, because now Jokowi style is very fast. We can deliver everything in very fast time. So that's another constraint for me, and limited budget for accessibility standards. Yeah, maybe I just want to highlight this because the building like ramps, elevators are very expensive. Sometimes the accessibility of people with disabilities are really, really hard or really, really bad. And we, as decision maker, we have to understand this. Okay. And I just want to show several slides because of my time constraint. This is the discussion made in Petra Christian University. This is Mr. Fauzi and Mr. Shakur. They are both using wheelchairs, so they describe the need of wheelchair accessibility in the library, and maybe the desk, and also the other accessibility. And this is Mr. Eka. So we are talking to also the blind people. So it's very interesting. During the blind, in the past, we don't really discuss with the blind because we think that they don't really understand the design. But in our case, we try to communicate with them, and then we are creating architectural model, like a small building model. So we talk and we ask them to understand, to feel the model, and we describe the concept, and then this is quite interesting. So this is just some examples that we've produced. We create a guiding path and also signage and also additional lighting. Of course, the building is 1980s, so we cannot change everything, but we hope to create more accessible pathway like this. And this is also a new, this is still this is not constructed yet, but we are creating more wheelchairs friendly tables and stations, and also very wide corridors. And also this is also the shelf. So we don't really change everything, but we are giving some braille and some signage, more clearer signage for them. And also we are creating assistance corner for people with disabilities, because we understand we have problem with accessibility in the 6, 7, and 8. Sorry, 5th, 7, and 8. So we are bringing them to the assistance corner first to get assistance. And this is the building, or sorry, this is the interior design or the final service corner that we produced in 2019. Thank you so much for Mrs. Dian and Director of Petra Christian University to implement this. Maybe just one more slide. The promotion of protection on rights of people with disability is central to UN Convention of Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Yeah, recognizing that the library's essential role in education, the study is concerned with identifying the barriers and opportunities for inclusive design of libraries in Indonesia. Particularly for my PhD is for people with disabilities. Library at Petra Inclusive Redesign Project shows actually we have conducted shorter time frame, or which is 9 months, and the process actually can be proposed to replace the 18 months or the longer times in other developed countries. Lastly, our socio-cultural model of disability must be considered in more inclusive decision-making process. Thank you so much for your time, and I will return the presentation to Mr. Abdul Hakim Masyhur. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Gunawan Tanuwidjaja, for your very interesting presentation of the
Thank you,
topic.
Mr. Hakim.
So, okay, and we still wait about for the question. If you, the audience, want to ask a question, so you can just write it on the chat box from the YouTube channel. And so later on, if there is no questions, I think we can continue to next presenter, which is Mrs. Cicilia Effie. But we just wait until I think it's better for us next to move to our next presenter, Mrs. Cicilia Effie. Okay, I think without any further ado, we just let's start for your session now, and times is yours.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here today and taking part in this mini conference by QUT ISAP. I would like to present my my project. So it's on parental mobile device use and its impact on Australian families. So compared to Mr. Gunawan, my project is different in a way that because I haven't done any data collection. So this is for my confirmation stage. And so I don't have any data yet, but I would like to share what I have found so far. Before I start my presentation, I would like to acknowledge, especially to my supervisory team in the Faculty of Education, as well as the ISAC committee for the opportunity and all the hard work that they have done for the mini conference today. So I would like to start my presentation by showing one Australian cartoon. So this is designed by the well-known Australian cartoonist Michael Leunig. And in this special work, he's showing how a mother was busy on Instagram. And then when the baby fell out of the pram, she didn't realize it. So the baby wishing that he was loved like a phone. Looking at this particular cartoon, you will think that, oh, you know, this is the reality of being a mom nowadays. But then when this cartoon was published, it created a lot of debate because it's very judgmental. So another artist from Perth, Western Australia, responded to Michael Leunig by showing everything that she's doing behind the wall of her house. So these are everything that she's been doing, but unseen by the public. However, when someone sees a mother with the baby on the pram holding a phone, in an instant, they say that that's it. That's how contemporary mother connected to their phone. The interesting thing is when the sibling of Michael Unique, the artist from the first cartoon, responded by making this third cartoon. So, as his sister, she decided to just shut, like Michael, um, by saying that being judgmental is not a way, is not a positive way to understand how parenthood or how parenting in this contemporary world, because with the use of mobile devices, it changes a lot of social aspect, including parenting itself. So the online debate on this cartoon was really um, interesting, because some parents say that, oh, it's just a reminder for me as a parent to interact with my children more, to put my phone down, during the family setting and everything else. But for some others, the first cartoon was too judgmental. So my study aims to contribute within academic literatures on how to understand parental mobile device use. So the background for my study is from the wider picture of mobile device use, as around 90% of the global population are currently using mobile devices. In Australia, on 2018, estimated around the same percentage of the Australian population are also using smartphones. So if you can see the numbers, almost everyone within the world population are using mobile devices. So parents are part of these users. In my study, there are two research questions to guide my studies further. So the first research question is, how do parents with children aged 9 to 12 years describe their mobile device use and its impact on their family? So with the first research question, I would like to understand how parents with different contexts of living, with different social contexts, describe the way they use their devices and how it impacts their family. The second questions, I'm looking at the children. So how do children aged 9 to 12 years describe their parents' mobile device usage and its impact on their family? So the difference between the first and the second research question is the participant, the subject. So for the second research questions, I'm looking at the description from children. So I want to integrate children perspective on parental mobile device use and its impact on their family. Before we go further to understand the way parents use their devices, it is important to understand the difference between mobile device in nature with the previous information and communication technology like television, radio, or even personal computer. So the contemporary mobile device is designed to fit with the hand size of the users. So as you can see, users can bring their smartphones or tablets, iPads, or iPod Touch easily. Even though the size of tablet or iPad is slightly bigger than smartphones, but then it's still easy for them to use. They still can scroll or tap or interact with the screen. So the current mobile device is designed to signify the intention for personal use. So it's different if you compare it to television or radio or a personal computer, because you have to place those technology in a certain place. So mostly it is static, fixed. And in order to use it, you have to go to that special place to use them. And sometimes you have to share it with other family members as well. So as mobile device users use their devices, they may experience positive reinforcement from the notifications. It can be from the vibration, from notification banner, or the blinking light, or the ringtone as well. As they experience positive reinforcement, it then support the checking habits, because users are expecting to receive instant rewards through easily accessed information. As mobile devices are designed differently than the previous technology, it may then create social changes in several areas. The first one is the changes in social interaction. So, one functional aspect of mobile device is as a medium to stay in touch with friends and families. And it promotes security because users know that they can maintain connection outside, like certain time. So there's no restriction of communication, because they can maintain communication and connection 24 hours um, for 7 days a week. Um, Back then, when each household usually only have one landline telephone, um, all the family members, they need to share the use of the telephone. There is no such thing as individual addressability, because it was just only one device and everyone needs to use it. However, with mobile devices, users do not have to share with others, because they can be addressed individually by their close circle of family and friends. Even though mobile device users seem to be able, to be able to be contacted by others at all time, in practice, that's not the story, because mobile device users can choose certain people um, within their close circle of family and friends, or known as individual selectivity. So this is the paradox. So even though mobile device users seem to be able, to be able to be contacted by others, but they can actually select with whom they want to maintain the connection. As you all know, that mobile device has been integrated within social interaction. Sometimes they bring unfavorable consequences as well. So the terms such as phubbing or technoference have been used in recent literature to revert to how technology use may interrupt social interaction. Second changes can be seen in the way people maintain communication. So direct communication is no longer the only option for communication, as there is mediated communication. One of the dominant method of mediated communication is the use of text messages. So it includes the use of chat platform as well, especially for adolescent and young adults. The benefit of using text messages within family setting is to maintain parent-child communication. And at the same time, because adolescent children, they don't have to sit in front of their parents when they do have problems, or they need to express their thought, their feelings. They can establish social distance which turns out very helpful for adolescents in expressing themselves and also in handling conflict with their parents because they do have the space to handle their problems. However, from the perspective of parents, prefer to handle conflict with direct communication. So as you can see, there's a different preference for parents and adolescents, and I would like to know through my study, like how parents and children aged 9 to 12 actually describe parental mobile device use because there are different ways of understanding mobile device use in the family. The third change is within work and life boundaries. So, for working parents nowadays, it's very easy for them to stay in touch with any work issues outside working space or working hours. So, they can work at home, in transit, or during vacation. However, it means that parental working hours is now being extended. The benefit um, for working parents by using mobile devices is that they can practice micro coordination. For example, parents can manage or contact the school or daycare when they are running late from the office. So they just need to call or inform the daycare or the school. At the same time, um, parents can also manage their work responsibilities while being at home with their family members. So it supports the well-beings of working parents. As you can see, that integration of mobile devices and other technology is the key of the way we work and communicate and learn, especially in the current moment of the pandemic. So recent studies on family practices in the digital age confirm that parents and children mostly use their devices inside their homes. So this is the interesting thing. So there's one national study in the UK measuring how family members use their time as family. So they compared the diary from the year of 2000 and the year of 2015. They found that there's no difference between the way family members use their time. So the amount is about the same from the year of 2000 and 2015. However, the striking difference was with the price of alone together time. So alone together time refers to how family are being together physically in their house, but they're being alone as each of them are navigating their online world. So in general, children and parents are spending time together just like 15, 20 years ago, but currently they are less communicating with each other because they do have their own world to navigate. The practice of second screen or multi screen is a common practice across contemporary families. This is where family members are using more than one screens. So, for example, they watch TV and then they also use their devices or their laptop or any other devices. Sometimes the activities between these two screens are related, but some other times it is not. So, moving to parental mobile device use, the first reason parents use mobile devices based on recent studies is related with child care or being termed is termed as child-centric use. So this is where parents use their devices to deal with the schools, with childcare, with the dropping off, and all of the small and routine issues. The second one is parent-centric use. This is when parents use their devices for their own purposes, like for work issues, to enjoy entertainment, or to maintain communication. The other reason is boredom and also related with parental stress, especially as parents have to deal with family and child rearing routines in their everyday life. The last point to, to understand the way parents use their devices is in relation to parental value and self control. So, studies have also confirmed that for some parents, the use of mobile devices within family setting is is not appropriate. But then some other parents think that because they are adults, they can do whatever they like. So the limitation, the rules of technology use is not for them, it's not applicable for them as adults. Within Australian setting, Australian parents use their mobile devices for at least 3 hours per day, up to 12 hours per day. From reviewing the existing studies, my study proposed to fill the gaps of the existing studies because most of the existing studies are using a single method of data collection, um, such as observation or parental self report, experiment, and interview. In my study, I will combine interview and survey as the method of my data collection with parents and children aged 9 to 12. The second gap that I would like to address is by integrating children perspective. So these are the list of existing studies that have already included children perspective. However, the focus are mainly on family use. So there's only one, if I may say, only one recent study that is really looking at the way at parental use. And then there's another one here looking at parent and adolescent child use. So there's a need in this research area to understand how parents use their devices based on children's perspective. Next one, this is the conceptual framework that I built for my study. So I'm using three theory. The first one is domestication of technology. It is a model to understand the relationship between private household and public world and how mobile devices play an important part in that relationship. Because compared to television or radio, TV and radio, they bring the outside world into the family life. So from the public world into the private household. However, with mobile devices, it works both way. So by the use of mobile devices, the public world are being brought into the domestic household. However, with with media sharing activity, the life of the family, the private household life is being broadcast to the public world as well. So it's the first theory is used to understand how a mobile device is playing an important part, in the relationship between domestic and public world. The scope of this theory is not just is not just looking at how parents use their devices, but also the meaning, the experience, and the role of mobile devices for parents. The second theory is family practices. So it shifted the traditional concept of family as something that people are. Like the traditional concept of family, where look at the um, parents, father and mother, and then like two children. But then with this theory, Morgan proposed that family is actually something that people do in relation to each other in their daily life. So this theoretical lens will guide my study in understanding how parents use their devices within their daily practices. For example, in transnational family, where parents have to migrate to other countries to, you know, to get better income, they can maintain their family practices um, through the communication, and then parents can still, like be with their children through mediated communication. So the understanding of parental mobile device use and doing family in everyday life is very important um, to achieve the objective of this study, which is to understand the impact of parental mobile device use on family practices. However, since I also integrate children perspective in my study, there is the third theory on sociology of childhood, and this theory focus on children's voice, the importance of children's voice, and viewing children as active social actors. So, because children are seen as an active social actors, they can contribute to my research and, like playing an important part in understanding their daily practices. So, in the context of my study, is the way their parents use their devices and its impact on the family. Methodology, as I mentioned before, I'm using mixed methods design. So it's exploratory sequential mixed method. So there will be two big phases. The first one is qualitative phase. So I will conduct interview with 5 to 10 parent-child diets, but then the interview is individual interview for each parent and and each child. I'm using online interview, in consideration with this COVID restriction as well. The duration is expected to be 30 to 45 minutes for each parent and child. So it's about 60 to 90 minutes per family. And I plan to use thematic analysis as my approach for data analysis. After I collect the teams, I will then use the teams together with modifying the existing survey items to build survey instrument. So as far as I understand from reviewing the literatures, this study will be the first study to come up with a specific survey instrument on parental mobile device use for parents and children. After pilot study and then revision of the survey instrument, then I will start the second phase, the quantitative phase, in which I will distribute online survey for 100 parents and 100 children through QUT key survey. It is expected that they can finish the whole survey within 10 to 15 minutes. And the data analysis approach is I'm going to use exploratory factor analysis. This is the proposed recruitment approaches. So I will distribute advertisement through online Facebook groups related with parents, and then local libraries and parent-child centers. I will also use campus services and put the advertisement on primary schools. For phase B, I will recruit participants using the same sites as phase A. However, since I'm going to recruit larger numbers, I need other strategies. So I'm following the existing studies related to mobile device use, even though not specific to parents. So I plan to use QUT media release and social media, as well as promotion through ABC, because ABC has been recently partnering with a group of researchers looking at big numbers of parents on the effects of smartphone use in parenting. However, this is only quantitative survey. So, there's no contextual understanding on how parents use their devices. And then the third one, I'm going to use email server within related organizations. The last one is the significance that I'm hoping to contribute. The first one is to provide contextual understanding on parental mobile device use in Australian setting. The second one is to integrate children perspective on the way parents use their devices and the impacts on family. And the third one is to develop survey instrument on parental mobile device use for parents and children. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much for presentation from the Mrs. Sheila Effie. It's very, very interesting topic, especially for everyone here, the audience who have a child. Probably this could be such as considerations when you have to deal with the mobile devices. Okay, let's start our Q&A session. And I think it will be from the first question is for Mr. Gunawan Tanuwidjaja first as our first speaker. So this question is for for
My
for
question.
Mrs. Shelafi. Yes. So the question from the first speaker into the second speaker. So okay, let me read the question. Is there any age restriction of mobile usage for kids? So you can just give your answer, Mrs. Shelafi.
Because this is out of my research scope, Mr. Gunawan, but then following the guidelines from the American Association of Pediatrics and the Australian Department of Health, it is advised that children under the age of 2, if possible, there's no screen time except for the use of video call. Because if you are using your devices to communicate using video call apps, it's still mirroring the real communication. However, if you are using devices for some other entertainment, it is expected not to use it for children under 2, but then for 2 years and older, they can use devices for maximum of 2 hours per day. Yeah, that's
Thank you.
the
Very
guideline.
All right. Well, it's. I think that's the answer is very, very interesting, especially for me who has just got this son of 2 years.
Yes,
Okay,
that's right.
let's move to the next question. Okay, next question is again for Mrs. Rialafi. This is from Mr. Edwin Adrianta. Okay, so what's your stand on guilt shaming for parents using mobile device during the family time? That's it.
Okay. This is a very interesting question. As I mentioned in my presentation in the early part, when I use certain cartoons, you can see that media and public in general use that method of guilt shaming. So they try to, you know, to make parents feel guilty and ashamed because they are using devices during family setting. However, it is important to understand that we need to understand the context of device use, parental device use. So it's not just pointing fingers to parents and saying that you should not use devices because you are with the children, but then we need to also understand the context that that started that usage. And yeah, so guilt shaming, um I hope I can address. I'm not saying objective because then it's hard to measure, but then I hope I can address the contextual understanding on the way parents use their devices, understanding the impacts based on their context of living, so we can actually move away from guilt shaming approach.
All right. Hopefully, Mr. Edwin Adrianta will be very happy with that response from Mrs. Shalefi. And we move to the next question. This is from Mrs. Priscilla Adiasi is towards Mr. Gunawan. Is there any requirement to include the people with disabilities in development countries like Australia? And why we cannot implement the recommendation in Indonesia?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hakim. Unfortunately, I haven't finished data collection in Australia, so so far there is no regulation for including people with disabilities in building or design or major projects. But we have some examples. For example, the transportation sectors, there is a focus group discussion for people with disabilities and decision maker. And we have also some example in New South Wales. They have included the people with disabilities for creating a park or creating park design. So we have uh, good practice from Australia that actually I want to bring to Indonesia, because I believe if we try it in Indonesian context, it will be better, because we have musyawarah, or we have collegial discussion, and we have gotong royong, we have a spirit of community. So actually we have that discussion culture, but yeah, maybe because we don't really understand the importance yet. Maybe lastly, if we include the people with disability, I believe all users, including women, pregnant women, older people, will be also uh, uh, understand, or will also get the better accessible building. Yeah, thank you.
Right. Oh, okay. Nice. Very nice response from Mr. Gunawan. And again, let's move to the next one, which is from Mrs. Kaironisha Rahmadita. I think the host should be up this question. Okay. It's also for Mr. Gunawan. The question is there any effect of simulation as disabilities to decision maker in Petra library case? That's it.
Yeah, we interestingly in Petra. Yeah, just want to clarify that actually the Petra Christian University Library case is not it's not a part of my PhD study. It's just introduction. It's just introductory project for my confirmation. So it's not really a part of my PhD scope, but as we did redesigning for Petra University Library. Uh, for example, I myself and Mrs. Dian, the library, the head of librarian, and the other three colleagues are actually understanding more, because we did simulation with the students, going to toilets, going to access books, and so on. So it's very interesting. Maybe in the future we need to bring our head of office, or maybe as Miss Cecilia as psychologist, and maybe as yourself, Mr. Hakim, as a lecturer. We need to bring more participants or more stakeholders to the simulation as people with disabilities, to understand the building. I mean, to understand the accessibility of the building and the service, because it can change many life of people with disabilities. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's see if there is an. Okay. All right.
It's still in the morning, so maybe in Indonesia we don't have any yet, but hopefully. Okay.
Okay, let's see if hopefully that kind of responsible get the answer for Mrs. Okay. Who's the name is Chan's girlfriend? Well, no problem. I think as long as this audience registered to our form, so we can just collect it later on. Let's see. The question for Mrs. Cecilia. Will it be any difference in the results in regards of different culture or different place of living? For instance, family who lives in the city and with family in the rural area.
Okay. Thank you for the question. This type of question is actually the reason why I want to pursue the understanding on parental mobile device use based on the context of living, because based on the review of the current literatures, I found out that there will be differences in the way parents use their devices based on, let's say, in your example, city and rural area, and then social economic background is also playing an important part, like families with higher income or lower income, and then as well as level of education, because all of those social variables, they are all connected, and it somehow it also connects to the way parents use their devices. um, Low access to education from lower socioeconomic family, it also hinders understanding from parents on, like, why I cannot use my devices all the time, why I can't just like use my devices to babysit my children, because it's easier to handle things at home and everything else. So current studies show that families with lower socioeconomic income tend to use their devices higher, because then it's not a direct association, but then it relates with the low level of education and all the other social aspects. So it's very contextual. I hope I answers your question.
Right. Okay. Very nice. Nice question. And let's see. Before I think, let's see if there is any question. Okay, no question. I think now it's for me, moderator. Like to ask for all of the speakers first. Maybe for Mr. Gunawan. I don't know. Maybe you have said before in our first question and answer during this, and I'm concerned about, yeah, like you said before, especially when we designing facilities that have to deal with the disabilities. Like you said before, is there in Indonesia, for example? I don't know whether you have found or not. Is there any kind of regulation that uh, created by the government that control any kind of building that should include any facilities for disabilities? That's all my question first. Thank you. You can answer.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hakim. We have lots of regulations. Yeah, starting with Act number 8, 2016. It actually control the derivation and then ministry regulation. Public Works Ministry regulation number 14, year 2017. And we have other government regulation. I didn't have the name yet, but I can provide the detail in my website. But yeah, the problem is actually the regulations. There are too many regulations, and then we need also the local regulation. So the problem, the current situation in Surabaya, we don't have the local city regulation level for accessibility standards. That's why many of the new educational facilities in our public buildings can be not accessible, like in Australia. Yeah, so we don't really only need national one. So we need national, province, until the city level. That's why I think in my case, I need as presented before, I have social cultural model of disability. I have reviewed some social cultural model of disability and ecological model. We need to include the national level, province level, until the local level. So yeah, it's very interesting. We have so many regulations, but it's not really applied in detail yet. Thank you.
Okay, right. That's very interesting because, yeah, you know that in Indonesia sometimes when we want to make some kind of new design or something like that, sometimes the barrier is it controlled by the government regulations or not. That's the reality sometimes with not only maybe for the building or especially maybe for the vehicle as etc. like that. But it's okay, no problem. Thank you very much for your response. And let's move to my next question to Ms. Cecilia Effie, I think. So during your presentation, I'm interested about you mentioned about the fobbing or phone snubbing. Can you just explain more about that? Because maybe it's can be of interesting term for me. Phone snubbing. That's it.
Yeah. So fubbing is a term used to describe how someone in the middle of social interaction
Okay.
suddenly distracted by the use of their devices. So suddenly the eyes are no longer, focusing on their social counterpart, but then goes to the screen. So that's how fubbing is used to describe.
Okay.
One paper describe it as when mobile device users suddenly direct their attention to the screen of their devices. So
Yeah.
in that sense, the social connection is not being maintained because mobile device users do not maintain the eye contact, and then their body language as well is like um, um, separated from their social counterparts because then they will be busy using their devices. So yeah.
Okay.
So they
I
use
think yes.
fubbing and in technoference. So they are similar.
Yes, at least I get the like the imaginations or some kind of example that you said before that what kind of phone snubbing is. That's an interesting
Yes.
thing. Okay, and another questions I think for Mr. Gunawan Tanuwidjaja. It's from Mr. Ahmad Firman Amal. Okay, do you mind to share with us about your project that involve both local and central government? Okay, that's your question.
Okay, I'm not sure with the question, but maybe I will talk a little bit on my data collection in Surabaya Library because I haven't finished data analysis, but basically it is a Surabaya municipality library, so it's not really it's not really related to the central government. It's funded by the Surabaya government only, and it is used for public Surabaya public. But I have done some research in Jakarta in some I have some examples also related like National Library in Jakarta and also provincial East Java Provincial Library. So in that case, we need to do collaboration, of course, like National Library in Jakarta. The national government will give funding or will give design and so on, but the implementation should be related to the local government, right? So I believe the central provincial. I think we don't only have two, local and central, but we have three actually. Local or Surabaya or city level, provincial level, and central government. So we have three stakeholders to be involved to do design for example, the National Library and Provincial Library. Yeah. Unfortunately, because of time constraint, I need to focus on one library. I mean, my supervisors agreed to only take one library in Surabaya and then another library in Brisbane. So I cannot comment on the collaboration of central and local yet, but I believe the central government can promote, for example, the current National Library board actually can promote the reading programs, can donate the books and so on, while the local government can provide the can provide the buildings and also the librarian training. So I believe we can collaborate between the national, province, and local. And of course, we need to involve the people with disability. That's one of my recommendation for future.
Okay, thank you very much for Mr. Gunawan for your response from the question of Mr. Ahmad Firman Amal. And okay, let's continue. This is, I think, from Mr. Yoga Darmawan. I think this is not question but for Mr. Cicilia, but maybe you can just give your response about this opinion. Mr. Yoga Darmawan said that as young parents, the inclusive understanding from all family members regarding this mobile device are inevitable in this digital era. Maybe you can just give your opinion about this.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Yoga, for your feedback. I can't wait to get the result as well for my study. So, yes, because what I read from the previous studies that if we only limit the input or like from the interview or survey only from parents' perspective, it's not like the perspective is not yet full. So we only get fragmented understanding on how parents use their devices based on what parents think they use it. But then just to give comment to your feedback, sometimes I have to remind myself as well, because it's very easy to just grab my phone and then deal with everything that I have to do. But then my 2-year-old daughter would just say, put the phone down, especially if I use it, like on the dining table. So I need my 2-year-old to remind me that it's not okay, mommy, to use your phone when we have dinner together. So from that daily snippets, I hope I can learn something from the children who will participate in my study. So thank you for your feedback.
Well done. Thank you very much, Ms. Levi. Maybe I'd like to continue your statement before. Maybe this is a question for me, especially as you also are parents currently, and related to your research, what kind of experience that you've done with your family, or either your son or your daughter, to like to support your research, or maybe you can learn something new or how to deal with this use of mobile device for you, especially as a parents. That's my question.
Because a life as parents itself is complicated. It's not easy. Like once you become parents, you know that we need to juggle a lot of things, and somehow the use of mobile devices help us in many ways. Like I'm not saying that parents use mobile devices and like it's all bad. It is not. It when you integrate mobile devices into your life as parents, it is actually helping you in many ways, in a lot of ways. But then, as I mentioned before, parenting in itself it's a lot of things. You need to juggle a lot of stuff all at the same time. So it depends on how you see it. It depends on your values and I would say self control as well as parents, because it's not easy. But then, since I decided to pursue this topic, I always have a reminder for myself, at least, that hey, you are going to understand, like why parents use their devices, and it's also a reminder for you. So I keep on having that, like internal discussion with myself as well, because I am in the picture. I am in the picture of my studies. So I don't know if I answer your question, but then
okay.
Yeah, it's just when I started this project, honestly, I didn't expect to be this complicated. But once I reviewed the studies and then talked to parents, I started to get the understanding that it's not as easy as I expected before.
Alright.
Yeah.
Well, it's very interesting answer, I guess, especially for all of the parents here. No problem. I think it's a good response from you. And another question. It's for both speakers. So, what are the challenges doing research in Indonesia and Australia? For Mr. Gunawan Tanuwidjaja in Indonesia and Miss Cicilia Effie in Australia. So I think start from Mr. Gunawan. What's your
Thank you.
responsibilities, the challenge?
Thank you, Mr. Rowan and Mr. Hakim. Actually, I will do both. So I can also share a little bit in Australia. So I'm doing now in Australia, and have finished my data collection in Indonesia. First, in Indonesia, it's so hard to get the research permit because as KT students, we need to go through the Ministry of Education, and then from there to the provincial level, and then from the province level to the city level. The research permit are really complicated. So I think it's good to have connections. If for example, for me in Petra Christian University, we have direct connection to the head of librarian in Surabaya. So we can do fast contact first, and then we proceed the research permit following the time. But in Australia, it's also the same. So we have also problem. I have also delay, but because of the COVID situation, it's not really related to the librarian. Unwilling to collaborate, but it's because of the COVID situation. They are very busy now, especially in the Brisbane Library, where they have 33 library, so they have to control all of the branches, and they have to control the 30 people limit. In the past it's 10, and then 20, and then now 30 or 50. So I think they are very busy now. So I couldn't ask for faster schedule or time frame. That's why I think I need to extend a little bit, maybe 2 to 3 months, because of the COVID situation. But I think back again, Indonesia, we need a lot of formal and research, formal letter, research permit, and everything. In Australia, we just send the email and they will reply. But of course, we need sometimes both. We need sometimes maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months, just to get feedback from the gatekeeper. Central librarian or head of librarian in each country. Thank you so much.
Okay, Mr. Gunawan, maybe if it's for another last question before response from Ms. Cecilia Effie. This is from a question from Mr. Edwin Adrianta. Maybe this is the last questions. What do you forecast for future research in your field, and with the severe of impact of COVID looming for years? So what your future? That's your last question, and before that, after that, we move for the response from Mrs. Cecilia.
Yeah,
thank you.
This is quite tough. This is out of my topic actually, but I will share a little bit because I did a little research on COVID-19 last month. With the COVID-19, we need to have social distancing. So actually, we cannot hug or we cannot talk closely to people, right? And it creates bigger or it. For one more. Now we need 4 square meter per person in library. So one visitor need 4 square meter in for example, like a toilet, the size of toilet, like 2 by 2. That's why the space usage is different now. We need larger spaces. We need bigger spaces, and actually it gives good accessible space for existing library. The big library has more spaces now. Yeah, so it's good for people with disabilities. But of course, again, we need to include people with disability in the decision making. Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. And okay, now comes to Mrs. Sheila Effie for your response for the challenge doing research in Indonesia and Australia.
Okay, thank you. Because I haven't really done data collection, but I have discussed with my supervisors and some of PhD graduates who used to interview children and family as well. So the challenges would be because in Australia we need to apply for ethics clearance, like the application at university level. Because in my study, I will be conducting interview with parents and their children. So I think that's the main difference between Indonesia and Australia, because here in Australia you have to pass ethics application first, and then the second challenge is based on personal discussion with PhD graduate from the Faculty of Education, was mainly on the um, in the recruitment process, because when parents or children decide that they want to terminate the process of data collection, then we have to just terminate the process of collecting data, and then we have to destroy all the previous data that has been collected. So yeah, I think that's the main challenges that I can see from my current position at the moment. But then, yeah, the first one would be the ethic, and then the second one is the recruitment and collecting data, because here in Australia, there's a huge respect for um, like individual decision by participants. So we can't push them to participate if they decide that they don't want to participate. So we need to respect that individual decision. So that's another challenges. So it's different than when you um, conduct research in Indonesia. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, before we close this session, I think I'd like to request for all of these two speakers to give a closing statement. So start from the Mr. Gunawan Tanuwidjaja first for your closing statement. Time is yours.
Yeah. I believe in the future we need to change our inclusive decision making process in Indonesia, more following the social model of disability, or with caring with people with disability more. So I believe the inclusive education will start with including the people with disability in decision making. Thank you so much.
All right. Okay, let's move to Mrs. Cicilia Effie for your closing statement, please.
I'm hoping that my research will contribute to help parents to understand, like the way they use their devices and how it impacts their family. So I really hope that by having children's voices in my study, it will help parents to understand the way they use their devices and how it impacts family from both sides. So it's not just from their perspective. That's the first one. And then the second one is that I hope, that I can contribute to the society in which we can stop the guilt shaming approach of pointing fingers to parents, when we see them using devices, and move toward the understanding, like on why they use their devices on certain time, and those kind of all of those social contexts that we need to understand before we judge someone.
Okay, thank you very much. Awesome. So that's the end. All right, we just reached the end of this session. As a moderator, I'd like to say thank you very much for all the participating audience. We just give questions and also follow the presentation of this incredible both speakers. So I hope all of the information that given by the speakers will be very useful for the audience. Okay, then that's the end. And then thank you very much for your presentations, and see you again for the next session. And for reminder, for the audience, if you haven't registered yet, just please register your details on the registration form given on the comments chat. And also, we will still have another 2 sessions after this, which will be led by Mr. Yogantara as a moderator. Then there will be 2 topics is given by Mrs. Sari Nurudeta and Mrs. Fitri Octaviani. So that's for all. It's my time, and as a moderator, and apologize if anything that it's not appropriate. Hopefully, it will be useful for the next session. Thank you very much, and see you again. Bye.